That's Titus, and I'm Thomas, and this is Everyone's Bad at Magic, where we untap, upkeep, and punt. And today, we're joined by a special guest, Derfull. Derfull, would you mind telling the people at home who you are and what your credentials are?
Sure. So my name is Richard. I am referred to as Derfull online or when we're talking about gaming and whatnot. I am a cEDH content creator. I have moderated a few different cEDH focused discords and written the literal book on Momirvig Hackball and Joyra Weatherlight Captain. These days, though, I just stick to the gameplay.
When you say you've written the book, does that mean that you have your primer published on the cEDH decklist database?
For a while, I held the list for Momirvig Hackball. And believe it or not, if you go check that list on the cEDH deck list database, it now points you to my Joyra Weatherlight Campton Transmogrify list.
It is super cool. For those who aren't at home, would you mind telling us what that card does or what that commander does?
Momir Vig is an old school commander releasing originally in Dissension. And what it is when you cast a green card, you get to tutor a creature from your deck to the top of your library. When you cast a blue card, you get to then draw a card. So the idea with Hackball is you would generate or you would use a spell to change that second ability from blue to green so that you're effectively tutoring a creature every single time you cast another creature. So that's where the Hackball comes from.
That's actually really fun. I like that. It sounds like you could break it in a bunch of interesting ways as well.
Yeah, I may or may not have recently looked at updating the list to be uh, that plus kind of leaning into some of the newer streamlined Gaia's Cradle lines with Oboro Breeze Collar and Talon Gates of Madara. So there may be an up-to-date list of Hackball floating around if people really want it.
That's super cool. Outside of the Breeze Car tech, are there any new toys that have drawn you back to that list?
I'm not actively playing it, but I do like going and tinkering with it every once in a while. So believe it or not, I actually do look at it probably once or twice a year and update it with some new cards. Like I just reviewed it last month for Lauren Eclipse to put in Formidable Speaker.
Nice. So, to take us kind of back to your beginnings with Magic, would you mind giving us your history, where you started, what got you into Magic, and kind of made you fall in love with the game?
Sure. So I'm going to show my age just a little bit here. I started with Magic circa 1995, 1996, around the release of Tempest. So that's how far back I go. I've played on and off over the years, but I keep coming back. As to what made me fall in love with the game, its overall complexity. Even back then, there was a lot of complexity to the decks, to the gameplay, to the interactions. And what really has helped me stay consistent with Magic, especially a lot more recently with cEDH, is I feel like there's always something new to learn or experience in gameplay. So,
Absolutely. There, getting those level up moments even today is such a good feeling. Learning a new line or figuring out exactly how a interaction works in a way that's unexpected is always such a great feeling. It's really cool that you've been playing for so long. We're also a couple of Magic boomers over here, so don't worry about showing your age. Back in 95, 96, how did you get your hands on Magic cards that early?
uh, friends. I had some friends that played, and they introduced me to the game.
Okay, so was that just kitchen table stuff, or were you involved in any sort of LGS scene back then?
No, it was definitely kitchen table. Where I lived, there weren't exactly great LGSs to support consistent play. So it was just winning where I could.
Oh, very cool. And you mentioned that you have kind of been in and out of Magic over the years. Outside of that initial run, are there any other times when you came back to Magic that are kind of notable in your progression?
Sure. Um, so early on, I was a fan of blue green. I came back in Mirrodin because artifacts also have always had kind of a soft spot for me. I love playing silver cards because everybody old school likes to call them mud cards or brown cards. But Mirrodin is where I was reintroduced to artifacts, so I definitely enjoyed that. Another notable point in time was Worldwake block. Everybody was crazy for Zendikar, Worldwake, and Rise of the Eldrazi. So I remember running John Eldrazi in Standard for Rise of the Eldrazi. Um, from there, it was just kind of on and off. I would dabble a little bit here and there, do some pre-releases. But what ultimately got me to maintain consistency with playing was getting into EDH about that time.
Awesome. So you definitely did play some standard back in the day. Is that the only 60 card format that you've played? Or have you dabbled in other formats as well? Because it does sound like EDH was your mainstay eventually.
Yeah, the standard, which I've always had a love-hate relationship with standard. So I would argue I didn't really fall into a particular category. I could not say legacy. I could not say modern because modern was just becoming a thing around that time. And so I was just enjoying playing with my friends and enjoying playing huge pods. I remember 6 and 8 people sitting at a table to play. I mean, and nothing beats the very first time you pull off the Sharoom the Hegemon combo and make players want to flip the table on you. Um, it was just the appeal of what you could do in EDH, which is what I think has kind of helped it maintain its consistency for me.
What did EDH kind of look back or look like during that time frame?
Depending on who you ask and who you talk to, some would say between 2008 and 2010, during the standard time frame I'm referencing, is when cEDH was born. You ask some others, that didn't really happen until circa 2016, 2015, 2016. So back then, I mean, we did not yet have commander decks printed by Wizards of the Coast. You cruised, forums, you cruised MTG Salvation, you cruised um, Tapped Out and hoping to find something that caught your eye or inspire you to generate your own deck. And so there was just to say it was the Wild West is not too far fetched. At that time, I would not argue that Commander was anything that held a structure, so to speak. So anything went. It was you could see some wild stuff.
Are there any early decks that you were playing that hold a special place in your heart?
The one I mentioned, Sharoom the Hegemon, Esper Artifacts, which is a theme that I can go ahead and tell you will come up again in my decklist history.
You did mention the Sharoom combo. Would you mind walking us through that combo?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I do not mind walking you through the combo. So it revolved around Sharoom the Hegemon being your commander. It puts you in Esper, which is a very strong color combination to support the strategy that you're trying to accomplish. It revolved around a method to clone Sharoom and a method of which you could drain the table in some manner. A very common way to do this would be through a artifact clone like copy artifact and a drain effect such as Blood Artist. Due to the commander rules at the time, which in this instance for Sharoom still holds true today, when you have a copy of your commander, you have to choose which one stays and which one would go to the graveyard. Now, the clone that you pick does help smooth this out. Because, again, remember that things like Phyrexian Metamorph did exist at this time. So you could cast Shroom and get back Phyrexian Metamorph, or you could have Shroom already on the board and you cast Copy Artifact. You always keep your clone. You always let the commander Shroom die and go to the yard. Shroom's effect, though, is still on the stack. Shroom the Hegemon has an enter the battlefield effect where you can return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that sets up your loop because you will have 2 copies of Shroom, you will have 2 copies of that trigger on the stack, and before you can resolve them, one of them has to go to the graveyard. Something like Blood Artist will see a creature going to the yard and trigger and deal 1 damage to everybody, and you gain a life. Or maybe, I can't remember the printing on Blood Artist, so forgive me. If not everyone, then at least 1 person. So that over time, as you loop this, you're just draining the whole table out.
That is remarkably similar to Derevi combos, so I very much understand the appeal of running these. And it's really cool that those have been around since pretty much the beginning of EDH. I know that you said cEDH is what gave you sticking power in the format. What would you say is the main draw to cEDH over Casual Commander for you?
If I were to flatly put my finger on it, which is a little tough to do, it would be, even though a lot of people play and enjoy Commander, I feel it takes a very special type of person to really play cEDH. And what do I mean by that? So some people would immediately go that I'm about to offend everyone, and I'm not. Every single game of cEDH that I have personally played online, in tournaments, at general events, right, with people, the really good games that stick out for me are the ones where the people that I'm playing against aren't salty and they don't make me feel bad for how I played or how I performed. So when you're playing with people who respect the table and respect that we're all here to play a game, I'm trying to win. If I was playing with you, Thomas, you're trying to win. If I'm playing with you, Titus, you're trying to win, right? So we all have the same game plan. We might have different strategies on how we want to get there, but those people who respect the table, I find to be far more enjoyable games because I've had plenty of games at lower power levels where I go to play something and it's immediately, oh, he's doing things, we need to stop him. And there's spite plays and there's king making. And I know that people want to complain about it in cEDH, but I personally just feel like that's a lot less the case than in lower levels of play.
100% agree.
It seems like there's a more standardized mentality about the gameplay dynamics or just gameplay in general for cEDH compared to casual. Well, there may be casual groups or people that could have like a good mentality in engaging with each other in the game. It just feels like it's probably more of a common occurrence for cEDH.
Yeah.
Yeah, Salt definitely seems like more of a casual experience than a cEDH experience. It does still happen in cEDH, but it's the exception, not the rule. So I think that's a really good reason to be drawn to cEDH. Besides the power level, it really is a very tight knit community as well. And it feels more or less that you might know people in different states, in different parts of the country, just from being part of the cEDH community. And the casual community just does not have that as part of its identity.
No, I would definitely agree. I play with people out of Canada. I have um, played games with people from Colorado and California and Florida and New Jersey, right? Like there's so many different people around the US that are passionate about the game, but at the same time also respectful. I've sat down at a game of cEDH with somebody who's learning a new deck, and they're brave enough to stand up and go, I'm not familiar with this deck, so I'm going to play slower. If you see something, can you help me? And when somebody is, I'll say, you know, mentally aware enough to say that, to put themselves out there, I'm far more inclined to be considered. I'm still going to play my game, right? I'm still going to try to win and I'm still going to try and do the thing. But at the same time, if I can see the writing on the wall coming from their deck, I'm more inclined to tell them rather than to let them continue to try and fumble through it, right? It's a sign from players when they want to improve to help them improve rather than just leaving everybody out in the cold.
Cannot, can't even count the number of games where somebody comes in and says, hey, this is like my first 5 games on the deck or in the format, and I'm trying to run an Underworld Breach combo. If they have it, we're not going to try to angle shoot them. We're going to walk them through how the combo works so that they can get an efficient idea of how to play it in the future, because we don't want to pub stop. Like, that is the antithesis of what cEDH is about. We want to help create good players for the format. So, could not agree with that point more. One of the things that we were curious about is what inspired you to start making cEDH content. We know that you have this wonderful new channel, but it doesn't seem like this is your first foray into content in and of itself.
That would be correct. It is not my first foray. And honestly, I just kind of fell into it, which is weird to say, but when I lay it all out, it'll make a lot more sense. So I still moderate for the Joyro Brother Like Captain Discord. Shout out to all the great guys and Wash and girls, because we do have some ladies in there, who play Joyro Brother Like Captain. I miss Joyra. She got hit by the bands pretty hard. We encountered uh, Cowley, who ran Unstable Commanders, and we caught his gameplay. I added it to the list of videos that I maintained for new Joyra pilots so they could see different ways that people pilot the deck. So it was a great training tool. So we had reached out to him, Wash more specifically, and invited him into the Joyra Discord. Well, I, as you guys can probably tell, I'm fairly outgoing of a person. So I struck up a conversation, and he was like, hey, you should come on and play on the channel with me. And I was like, sure. So the very first game I played Dihada, Finder of Wills, because I was still learning and figuring out the deck. And my first gameplay ever on Unstable Commanders, I played Dihada and won. And he, I guess, saw something in me or figured, hey, I'm going to talk to this guy. So he put out that he was looking for a co-host. I said, I'll do it. And then I spent a year co-hosting for Unstable Commanders. Towley ultimately ran into some health reasons and had some health concerns. So he stepped away. He's doing great, by the way, for anybody who knows me and knows Towley. He's doing good these days. Um, but I then was like, well, I've started doing it. I found something that I really enjoy, and so I decided to keep doing it.
And is there a reason you stepped away from the original brand?
Out of respect and decency. Um, it was Towley's. Towley's had been running it for a while. And I didn't want to necessarily impose anything. I kind of, it was his choice, it's his decision, it's his channel. And I wanted to be respectful. And also, if he decides ever that he wants to get back to it, then it's there waiting on him. And I didn't want it to be um, just no bad feelings, no. I didn't want to step on any toes, so it's just a respect thing ultimately.
Class act. Awesome. So you are just unbelievably busy with all of the different things that you were doing. Not only do you have a new YouTube channel, you're streaming on Twitch, you're making shorts, and you've started broadcasting cEDH tournaments. Is there a particular project that you would say is your favorite to work on?
Oh goodness. Hmm. So just a general reminder for your audience, I am one person. So when these gentlemen here, Thomas and Titus, are talking about editing videos, doing commentary, and all this other stuff, it's me, and then I do have someone that I pull in for commentary to help with that. But as far as all the edits to the videos, doing shorts, all of that's all out of mine noodle. So I like shorts. Shorts is my favorite thing to do. Not because of the quick hit nature or the fact that I can belt them out really, really quick. It's just it really is just the act of doing it because I get to talk about some really cool and off the wall stuff. Some of it is a hit. Some people like the bling and like, when I show off the cool stuff I'm adding to my deck or changes that I'm making, or when I get to highlight a really cool commander. Like I saw at one of the recent tournaments that I commentated, Auntie Ool from the Lorwyn set had been legal for a week, made it to semifinals of Forest Fight in Durham, North Carolina, and it was a wild deck to watch. It when it won, it was game 5, so it was the end of day 1 for those who go check out the tournament coverage, and he won on turn 4 underneath a vexing bauble.
For those who don't know, Auntie Ool is one in a Jund with Ward Blight 2. Whenever one or more -1/-1 counters are put on a creature, draw a card if you control that creature. If you don't control it, its controller loses 1 life and a 1/1. And it's a 4/4. I'm guessing I just don't know the combos for this. That's a wild deck to take to a tournament. Do you remember the lines?
I don't remember all of the lines, but I do remember how he won in that game. Auntie Ool really wasn't too much of a factor, but the rest of the deck was geared around the -1/-1 counters. As a commentator, I am able to see the players' deck lists while they're mid-game. So I went and I pulled it up, and if you go back and look at the commentary, you can see there's a moment where both me and my co-host look at each other, and we just kind of get really big eyes. We're very good at hiding the rest of it, but we looked at the list and we were like, he's about to cook these boys. So turn one, I believe he did pregame because he was C3, pregame into a gemstone cavern. Land drop for turn on turn 1, puts out a devoted druid. That's his first play. For those of you who are unfamiliar, devoted druid has a few different ways, which the deck runs all of the ones in its colors, to generate infinite mana. So the moment we saw that, I was like, oh, we're off to the races already. The Ral player was in seat 1. They had the Vexing Bauble, I think, on turn 2. So everyone was pretty much kind of dirtling their way through their turns, and we only see the table. We don't actually get to see the players themselves. By the way, we're working on that. Um, and so he just played a game, played some rocks, kept things moving, and then the Ral player tried to win at the top of turn 4, I'm pretty sure, and fumbled it. Straight up fumbled it. We talked to him afterwards. He was like, "Yeah, I know. I totally messed that up." But then it gets back around to the anti-Ul player. He taps out the devoted druid, killing it to get enough mana to cast a Hazel's Brewmaster. Hazel's Brewmaster allows him to exile the devoted druid that's now in his graveyard. And he can make a food token, and then that food token has the ability of devoted druid to tap for a green, put a -1/-1 counter on the food token now, and untap it. So he could generate infinite green. On turn 4, in a deck that nobody knows what it does. So then he proceeds to Finale of Devastation for well over 10 to go grab Walking Ballista and Machine Gun down the table.
That makes sense. That's
So
pretty cool.
because he spent colored mana on everything, that's how he was able to skate by the Vexing Bubble.
That is a sick deck. Just taking a quick look at it now. We might link it in the show notes just so people can check it out.
So, and the player who played it, when my co-host Will spoke to him, he is like, yeah, the deck draws a lot of cards. And everyone else that we spoke to at the tournament that says they encountered his deck confirmed it. The deck draws cards like it's nobody's business.
I mean, the color pairing does typically do that, which is one of Jun's strengths. You don't think it would, but think about decks like Corvold. That deck just draws a ton of cards and makes mana, so that's not super surprising. I hope we see more of this deck. It's very cool looking now that I'm looking at it.
Now, I'm not here to tell people that this is a meta warping deck, because that's not, I don't feel like it's meta warping, but I will tell you I have a feeling we're going to see it again.
And I think that's a cool thing. Some people feel that, hey, I have to play like one of the top lists or, commander pairings. If you're playing, like, say, Tim the Thrasios or Rogrek Thrasios or Tim Necrom or even like Kinnan, but there's a lot of opportunity for other commanders or decks or strategies to do well. Now, I'm not saying this is coming from the best player who's playing a bunch of rogue strategies, but when you see a player kind of promote something and like take off, the same thing with Ral Monsoon Mage. It's a great commander. It just takes some people to play it and push it forward, and then it gets popularized.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. I came across Holden Pryo because of Ral and because I was looking for red blue. Since you asked about Kark and Sakashima, I was looking for a red blue deck that I might be interested in playing. I never fully built Ral, and I never have played it, but I can definitely see the appeal.
It's like a the one of the dedicated storm lists in the format.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've halfway built Rao a number of times. I've played it once, and after making people watch me dirtle for 30 minutes, I decided not to play it with other people. I respect my time and other people's time on this earth way too much to waste their time with it. So it sounds like cEDH commenting is something that you're really passionate about and something that you're probably going to be growing as part of your brand moving forward. How did you get involved with Letting Go to start the commentary?
So it was Unstable Commanders. I don't know how Snowball became one of our guests for one of our shows to play, one of the times we were recording. But he did. So I got to meet Snow very early on, and we had a very interesting game. He was playing Kinnan. We had another player that was on Timna Thras, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I couldn't remember what me or Tally were playing. But I remember we had a very good game And then we had a very long conversation with Snowballin afterwards. And it was, just shooting the breeze, having a conversation. And that was a Saturday because that was when we were recording on Saturdays. And then the next day, so Sunday, he says, "Hey, I've got something I want to talk to you about." Now, please forgive me. I'm not quoting the man exactly. I am paraphrasing based off of my memory. But he's like, "Hey, I got something I want to run by you." So I talked to him a little bit. Tally talked to him a little bit, and he said, "I really think you guys would do great at commentating for this event that we've got coming up." And so he introduced me to Wayne, who is the tournament organizer at Land Go, and talked to Wayne, and I hit it off with Wayne. And Towley did not want to do the traveling to Nashville because Towley lives in Oklahoma. I live in North Carolina, so it was just a hop and a skip for me. So I agreed to do the commentary, and then I thought I was prepared for it. I was woefully underprepared. I had car trouble and everything, but it was all because of the conversation I had with Snow, which today I consider Snow a very close friend. So very very good guy. I have put in a lot of work with him, um, and Wayne. So I did commentary for the Invitational back in May. That was my first one. Um, I then did commentary for the Cookout in October in Atlanta. I just did Forest Fight, and then I'm going to be producing the commentary stream for the Boil. So I myself will not be providing the commentary, but I will be supporting those that are going to be providing it. Um, we have some special guests lined up, and I think one of them has been announced, the other one hasn't, so I'm not gonna spoil it for people. Just know that there's some really cool stuff that we're working on. So, which my March already is gonna be pretty stacked. So,
I feel like we are definitely entering the golden age of cEDH commentary. Between what you're doing with LandGo and what MTG Basics is doing with Excalibur events and their own events, I think that people who are not watching tournament coverage as a way to improve their own gameplay are definitely missing out on an opportunity. Have you found that commenting on these tournaments has elevated your own game in any way?
uh, yes, yes, but probably not for the reasons that you would think. Anyone who has played in a game with me, especially one that's, gameplay recorded, I don't politic. I am I am a firm believer in make them have it. I'm not one to sit there and yap about something for 20 or 30 minutes. Commentating has taught me what to look for. Example, I've now provided commentary for games that include Freedom Waffle. Evan's a great guy. No
The
qualms
goat.
here. But I was playing a game with somebody I had completely random. I was doing a pug game to help go to combat out, and there was a Kinnan player. And about halfway through playing with this player, I'd never met them before, had no idea who they were. I was like, this feels really familiar. I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. So it was just kind of a nagging feeling in the first game, and then we played a second one, and the feeling came back again. And I was like, okay, I know what this is now. So sure enough, we finished, and I was like, "Hey, by the way, just curious, have you ever done coaching with Freedom Waffle?" And he was like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I was like, "It's like I could just tell." So it's picking up on what people choose to care about, picking up on the nuance of the interactions and when and where they're taking place, right? So I'm able, now that I've been commentating and literally spending hours watching people of the highest caliber play, I'm starting to see a lot of these play patterns, and I'm starting to be like, okay, now I'm picking up on these things that people are talking about, and experiencing them in the games with others. Um, but the other aspect to commentary is I have a very good understanding. Being a content creator, I come across all sorts of decks. I see all sorts of craziness. Um, I know one of the Canada guys, Crazy Axe, still runs Braylon and Shabraz, um, which I haven't seen or heard of in a long time. But he is fire on the deck. I've heard people running Zada. He drawn Grinder, which you think Zada in cEDH? Apparently the deck draws crazy cards. That game I played with it, it was pretty short. It didn't last very long, so I didn't get to see it. But it's things like that where I see so much because I don't shy away from people bringing decks that they're passionate about, because like I said earlier, to me that is more appealing. But it also means that I see things and I have a different kind of understanding. So then when I'm sitting down in a tournament and we've narrowed it down to about 5 or 10 decks, and then Auntie Ool sits down and you're like, now I've seen Corvold, I've seen other Jund decks. What makes this unique? What makes this different? What makes this stand out? And then to watch it just burn through everything and win on turn 4 without breaking a sweat. Well, like I said, I couldn't see the guy. He might have broken a sweat. He was under the lights, so I couldn't tell you. But you kind of get my point there, right? I see so much of it in doing content that when I get to commentate on these things, I have a slightly different perspective. The other aspect to it is when I'm commentating, I try my best not to speculate too much, because even though I have a pretty good idea of what Kinnan does, I have a pretty good idea of what Blue Farm does or what Rogthras does, players put different things in their decks. Certain cards work for some players, other cards don't. So I can only speculate so far into their mentality and their mindset. And so I kind of have to stick to the actions as they're being presented in the gameplay, which I have been told is reminiscent of old school commentary, right? Where the pros would be up on the stage and the players can hear them. So you don't want to give them something or give them an idea or help them out, but at the same time you want to have it be engaging, right? I had people watching my very first stream for Landgo over the other stream that was running, because there was the invitational and the open, because they liked how I explained things better, or they liked how the gameplay was presented to them better in a way that they could understand and follow easily. And I've also been told it helps that I have a silky smooth voice, so there's that.
I'm not going to disagree with that statement. Some people just have that sultry voice, and you gotta accept it for what it is.
So do you find yourself, Derfull, enjoying the commentating aspect more than participating in tournament gameplay?
Yes. And it's because of the aforementioned, I'm not a huge fan of politicking. I just I've seen enough games and commented on enough games. I've even participated in enough games where I've seen the yap game, as I'll call it. It kills the mood and the vibe for me. That's the one thing that I wish more players would be conscious of is, I respect that you want to talk about some things. Some items I'm willing to talk about, some I'm not. And I get that that's also just me. But if you want to sit there and break down every single game action that I take and interact with each little thing, that is what kind of turns it off for me.
Yeah, not every game needs to be an episode of Survivor. I don't disagree with you there.
Right. So that's why I say I respect those that have a strong yap game. I do. And I get that some decks you kind of have to do that, but the decks that I play, either I'm going to have it or I'm not. And either I'm going to blow you out and win or I'm not.
And what current cEDH decks are in your roster? I feel like I've seen Dahada and Tivit.
Mm-hmm. So you're correct. Number one, the pet, the deck that has, gosh, Dihada is number one. I'll say that. Dihada is number one. About that, I've always wanted Mardu to work. I've always wanted Mardu to work. And at the time, when I was picking a Mardu commander, Dihada is the one that ultimately spoke to me the most. Timna Dargo really wasn't a thing at that point. Then second is Tivit. Remember I told you guys earlier that Esper and Artifacts were gonna make a comeback in my roster at some point. So that's where we land on Tivit. That plus it's the coolest deck that runs Time Sieve with one other card. Because if we go all the way back to Shroom days, I used to have to do it with Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek, which is way more complex to do back then compared to just doing it with Tivit now.
Yeah, getting what is it, 5 artifacts for 4 players at the table, correct? It's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. So third deck right now is Dog Thras. So I actually am working on a video right now that I recorded with one of the Blight Club Alberta, Canada members, Luminate. We've got a video coming up where we talked about Dog Thras and Dihada a little bit, and it's centered around deck building. And then I'm also putting together the pieces for Rog Thras because it was suggested to me that I participate in some tournaments, if for nothing else than to have a little bit more credibility when I speak to it. Not that my 10 years of being in cEDH and writing books on decks doesn't, give me enough credibility, but the tournament aspects for players is what they were getting at, which I understand and I respect. Dog Thras can put up in a tournament. Rog Thras can put up in a tournament. Tiv and Dihada can as well, but I find that my play style with them is different compared to how I play with Dog Thras and Rog Thras.
I actually think Tivit is very, very well positioned in the current meta. With no bad cards cannon running around wild, you can run the exact hate pieces that stuff that deck and stuff Blue Farm within Tivit. And you can even stuff Cradle decks. I cannot say good enough things about Tivit in today's meta. And if I was to play Esper, that would be the deck I was playing again. It's also a deck I learned the format on, so I have such a huge soft spot for Tivit in my heart. So glad to see
Right
it's
on.
getting some love.
Oh yeah. Because I started on Tivit, gosh, it was after he was spoiled. I can't say I was one of those kids on the bandwagon and I saw the light before. I definitely picked it up after the fact. And I think, as with most decks that I run, it's either I'm doing it on a dare, which have very long and storied history of building decks on dares, and or I saw someone play it and I could just hear it in their voice or see it in their eye and you guys kind of know what I'm talking about, that magic little twinkle that somebody gets when they play their pet deck or the one they really, really love and they're really passionate about. And in some cases, it's very infectious. And so Dog Thras is because I watched Luminate play it and have a ton of fun on it. So I was like, you know what? I want to try it. I did the same thing with Atali and Cousin Two Chains, another member of the Blight Club in Alberta, Canada. He's big on Atali, so I ran Atali for a while. Fun fact, Atali is boring, which is why I took the deck apart. It's a great deck. It's very simple and straightforward. It's can you count to 7 in Gruul,
Would not disagree more.
right? And don't get me wrong, I completely respect the play patterns. I'm not saying it's a bad deck. It's just to me, it gets very boring very quickly.
The fact that I have sat in an hour-long game where 50 minutes of it was Natali storming off and not being able to win is the main reason why I do not think it's a simple deck to play. I am not saying advocating that anybody plays that deck. I am a certified Atali hater. Um, and I run hate pieces for the deck that I will tutor for specifically so I never have to sit through a 60-minute turn again in a cEDH game. But good
Well,
lord.
Itali's more like a random path type of commander, right? You don't know where your journey's going to lead. It just depends on the luck of the top card of your opponents and your own deck.
Yeah, non-deterministic storm where you can't even choose your own adventure is not a good place to be. Or not a place that I want to be, at least.
I was gonna say it's definitely a place I don't want to be. I have a friend who is very passionate about the deck, and then he was like, I realized I've been playing it so much lately. He switched gears back over to Sisay, and he was like, "Man, I've got to sit here and grind games on Sisay because I can't remember the lines anymore because he's so used to Atali and just, like you said, uh, bonus choose your own adventure without choosing your own adventure." And so, yeah.
We walk into the ride and see what happens.
Yep.
Now, if you don't like politicking, Realm Monsoon Mage may be a good deck for you to play.
Well, yeah, because it's either you got it or you don't.
Yeah, it's the same slot machine, but it's your own deck.
But one might argue that's what I really enjoy about Dihada.
Yeah, Dihad is a sweet deck. I have nothing but good things to say. It's one of my favorite Mardu decks. Sorry, Titus. I know that Tim Jessica's near and dear to your heart, but
I think it's more so just Jessica is. I wish there were some new upcoming partner pairings, but I think other players would not enjoy more partners being added into the game.
yeah, you're not wrong. It's not the most popular mechanic in the world.
No, no, it is not.
So, one of the things that immediately drew me in when I first started looking into your channels was how clean the production is, just across the board. You alluded to the fact that you might have a hobby that contributes to this. Would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Sure. So, I personally never done anything in photography or cinematography. What I do, though, is I enjoy technology and I'm an avid researcher. My personal background is in technology and cybersecurity. The moment I say that, it kind of makes sense why I have such a passion for the production level. So, the hobby that I referenced is I design offices, like home offices for people who either stream or work from home. A friend of mine, he's referred to as Old Peeps, and he runs a charity for disabled veterans. And so he streams, builds PCs, and I helped him design his stream room in his home. I had to figure out how to run cables all around to support 24 cameras, webcams, all running off of a single computer. I had to figure out lighting. I had to figure out how to support 8 monitors. Yes, 8 monitors mounted to a single desk. I had to figure out logistics of all the different things that he wanted to do in the room.
Doesn't sound excessive at all.
Oh, the man. He's a very good friend of mine, and he does not understand the word excessive. Um, of note, he did decide personally to scale back on the number of cameras, but I did help him design his room and actually went and helped him build it, paint it, put it all into practice. I've done my own office, and I just finished renovating my wife's office. Well, I say finished. It's not done, but it's just in a usable state right now. So, with that in mind, I have a particular attention to detail. When I was researching, okay, how am I going to account for all these different things? How am I going to incorporate what they want to do? So he's a streamer. Me and my wife work from home. My job requires me to be on the phone and on calls talking with customers all day long. I know I say I don't like yapping, yet that's literally what I do for a job. So that means I did a lot of research. I looked up things. I researched what the best cameras are, what the best uh, gear is for streaming. I found what works and what doesn't. And so when I decided to do things on my own, and I was like, okay, so I want it to be good quality. So I had made that decision. Some of the items I started off with were hand-me-downs from my buddy who streams. Like he'd get a new mic and he'd give me his old one, or he'd get a new audio interface and give me the old one. And so I slowly assembled and started working on things. Picked up a DSLR camera, figured out how I wanted to do my overhead shots, figured out cameras and lighting and how to tie it all together. So it really just kind of spiraled from I need to answer other questions, and in doing so, figured out along the way how I wanted to do things. So it just kind of naturally grew out of other passion projects that I got to work on.
Yeah.
We're getting a bit close to our time. One of our favorite questions to ask here is, can you think of a pivotal punt in your Magic career that's kind of informed um, how you've played since then and how it's affected your games and how you approach Magic?
Yes, there there is such a moment. Um, and I can tell you who I was playing with. It was Cousin Two Chains, Intraback, and Towley, and it was a recorded game. So there's recorded proof of this on the Unstable Commanders channel.
Okay, I gotta stop you there because we've mentioned them too often to not have shouted out the Praetors of Spice. If you haven't checked them out, please go and do so. They do a great job up north. Please continue.
No, you're good. We were playing a game. I was on Dihada. Cousin, I'm pretty sure, was on Atali. I think Towley was on Tivit or Kinnan, and Intraback was on his Vile Pod, which is Thrasios Vile Smasher for those who are unaware. And I was in the process of winning, but then Intraback asked me to slow play it. So he wanted me to go step by step. And I was like, okay. So sure enough, I slowed down per his request and started playing through it. Now, some people, your initial thoughts are going to be, well, how are you winning? I was in the middle of a breach line. So I was in the middle of an Underworld breach line. I was using Flicker on Dihada, which is I personally feel the best way to win with the deck. So I was bouncing Dihada, milling cards, and recasting Flicker to just keep repeating this process with Breach. And he was in the process of drawing cards at the same time. So what he was waiting for was for him to draw Boseiju Who Endures, and for me to exile a key piece out of my graveyard. It was a teaching moment, I will say that. But he was trying to get me to the point where I made the mistake so he could point it out to me. Sure enough, I exile Savine's Rack, he Boseiju's Underworld Breach and completely blows me out. So since then, it has taught me when I am performing my breach lines, if I come across Savine's Wreck or I come across a silence effect or something like that, I will literally take it out of my graveyard and set it next to the graveyard so that I don't inadvertently do something like exile it, be it intentional or unintentional. So that is one of the biggest moments where I was clearly in the victory lane. I was pulling up to the line, and because of my hubris, I played right into a tall tell sign that I should have been paying more attention to.
You know, as far as punts go, that's a really clean lesson to learn from one, and I'm not mad at it, especially since you've developed a very clear way to fix it moving forward. I really like that one.
Yeah. So for those of you who are watching at home, my recommendation for any breach deck is if you know there's a card you don't want to inadvertently exile, set it off to the side. I have asked judges about this, and they say as long as you are clear with what you're doing, they don't have any problems with it because all you're doing is representing the board state.
That is a very, very good idea and great advice for everyone at home. We're getting towards the end of our interview today. Titus, do you have any final questions that you'd like to ask?
Yeah. Do you have any personal goals moving forward in Magic the Gathering? So it already sounds like, being a part of the commentating space and also having a hand on Momir Vig and still being a part of the Joyra Discord, is there anything else that you would like to see within the game or within any of the formats?
So some people might view it as a good thing, some people might disagree. I don't have any interest outside of cEDH at the moment. Not saying it won't change in the future. As I said stated earlier, I would like to play in some more local tournaments to enhance my commentary, which I think that's easy enough to do. But of course, bearing that in mind, I'm looking to play and do more in the space at large, grow my community above and beyond what I'm already doing. I'm in the process of evaluating new forms of shorthand content, slowly creeping out to other platforms. I'm building out Instagram at the moment, looking towards TikTok in the future, since, like I said, I enjoy shorts the most. And it's just an interesting journey so far that to a degree I'm just kind of enjoying riding the proverbial wave right now. As far as the near to immediate future, I have a work event in March that's going to be the whole first week of March. Then I have commentary for a tournament in Greenville, North Carolina. The following weekend, the weekend after that, I have commentary for an event in Outer Banks, North Carolina, and then the end of March, I'm flying down to New Orleans for the Boil to produce that. So my March is already pretty crazy. May is shaping up to be pretty crazy, and then a personal bucket list item completely unrelated to Magic. I will be going to San Diego Comic Con in July.
Oh, that's sick.
So it's just I turned 40 in December, and I'm out here living my 12-year-old self's best life. That's all I can really say.
Well, I love that.
Now, as far as cEDH, I of course love to see the tournament scene continuing to grow, as well as a refinement on the existing systems in place that govern them. I would like to see some adjustments made. Of course, every tournament grinder I know is going to bemoan this. I really would like to see some changes to how draws are counted. I will say that I do think that some cards that are currently banned need to stay banned. We kind of joked about that earlier. I'm perfectly fine today with Dockside being banned. That thing was terrible, if you really want to sit there and examine it. Mana Crypt, I feel like Mana Crypt had enough of a drawback. It shouldn't have been too bad. Jeweled Lotus, it's probably going to come off the ban list at some point. It just wasn't Monday. I do agree with what a lot of people are calling for to help diversify the meta, because I feel like creativity is what really brings the best out of cEDH, personally. And sadly, the only way to do that beyond printing new cards is to really evaluate properly the existing cards. That's not saying that they aren't being evaluated properly. Let me just make sure I'm being clear in that statement. Just they need to be evaluated, they need to be reviewed, and if nothing else, I feel like more restrictions need to be put into place.
Is that something that you think that the commander committee or WotC should have more of a hand in?
I will say this. I do agree with them having it, and I don't feel I'm being overly critical of the team that's in place, because they're looking at Commander as a whole, and certain cards are really only problematic in situations like cEDH tournaments. There are decks that are geared specifically to have as many copies of Rhystic Study as they possibly can, and then each different trigger of Rhystic Study creates a whole new round of priority. So is it really that Rhystic Study is the problem, or is it that they're abusing that? Not saying that they are. I'm just saying, is that how they need to look at it? Is that that's abusing the way that the game system is intended to work?
It's 100% abusing the way the game system's intended to work. We're CDH players. We break everything we can in order to get the most powerful result.
Right. But
Yeah.
then that's the type of thing that I wonder if that is a factor to how those cards are evaluated.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. Thank you so much for joining us today, Derfull. It's been a pleasure having you on. We're going to put your link tree in the show notes below so that people can follow you on all of your platforms. Would you like to take a moment to plug anything that you're working on?
I think I've been pretty good about it throughout, so I don't have anything specific at the moment, other than I hope to have some new videos out soon. I've been fervently working on a lot of things in the background, but nothing's quite ready yet for the limelight. But I would encourage people to follow and keep an eye out.
Awesome. I know we sure will be. If you stayed with us this long, please consider giving this video a like, follow, and subscribe, or comment depending on how you found us. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to each other. It's just a game.